It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Canada bobsledder, Mackenzie Stewart. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, thank you.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started into the sport of bobsledding?
Yeah, so I actually didn't think I would ever do a winter sport. I grew up in a pretty temperate climate of like -2 is the max, and usually it was like 10 degrees and rainy. But I was doing track and field and it kind of plateaued for me in university. And so my dad and I sat down and we went through a list of Olympic sports because that was kind of the goal. I really wanted to go to an Olympics. And bobsled kind of popped up 2 or 3 times, and I was like, I don't know. I don't think that's for me. And then a couple months later, a girl from the BC bobsled team actually messaged me. She had looked through the roster at my university and she was like, "Do you want to try?" And I was like, maybe it's a sign. Like, I've heard bobsled 3 times in the last month. Like, maybe I should go give it a shot. And I did, and it ended up changing my life 5 years ago.
Of course, what was that like competing in college track and field?
It was amazing. It was probably one of the highlights of like my entire schooling career was being able to compete for Simon Fraser University and being able to travel and just have that team environment going through university.
What were some of your accomplishments for the Simon Fraser track and field?
So I came top 3 in the NCAA Division II high jump, and top 8 in the pentathlon for indoors, and those were probably some of my top accomplishments while being there.
What was that like, obviously getting to represent them and getting to put on that track and field uniform?
Yeah, I think that just like a sense of pride and like being able to like share that with my family and my parents after always being into athletics is very cool to be able to put on the maple leaf and go compete in the States for my country.
How did your experience in competing at track and field in college help you to transition to the sport of bobsledding?
I think a lot of it is crossover, like weightlifting and sprinting really translates for bobsled, and it was very different because you're running on ice. But I think just having the like grit and the determination to pursue that and continue with it. In track and field, I had to learn a couple new events because I had never thrown a shot put before. I'd never done hurdles really, so learning those things, you really have to be determined to figure it out in a couple of years and be good at it.
What was that moment like when you got to get to become on the Team Canada team and get to represent Canada?
I was really excited, and I think I kind of downplayed it a little bit because I wasn't sure really where I was fitting in on the team, whether it was development or World Cup. And I didn't really want to talk about it too much so that people wouldn't get their hopes up for an Olympics. But inside, it was like a huge feeling like that was a big accomplishment to now be part of Team Canada.
What was that feeling like the first time you got to put on that Team Canada gear and have the Maple Leaf flag on you?
Kind of emotional, actually. I think like I had had the flag on me for university, but never to the extent of like I now have Team Canada behind my name. There's not really a feeling like it. Like everybody says I'm Canadian, and that's amazing, and I love being Canadian. But to be able to say I was part of Team Canada for something, even if it's just for a short time, is really cool. It's a cool experience.
How was that like getting to train and compete in the Whistlers Center's track?
Amazing. I love Whistler. It's the fastest track in the world, which I'm sure you already know. Um, but the adrenaline rush at the top, like the butterflies you get, I feel almost sick. And then I get to the bottom, I'm like, that was the rush of my life. Like that was great. Let's do it again. And then you get to the top, you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do it again, but I do, but I don't.
Of course, what was that moment like when you got to step in the bobsled for the first time?
I actually was terrified. I didn't think I was going to pursue the sport after my first time in a bobsled. Um, Going 130, not really seeing where you're going. I was a brakeman at the time. My pilot was new, so it was a pretty rough ride. I ended up having such a big hit that I had a blood clot in my hip for a couple weeks. I couldn't squat, I couldn't sleep on my side. I was like, I don't think this is for me, Dad. Like I'm not built for bobsled. Um, but I missed the adrenaline rush once I left, so I ended up coming back.
What has some of your experiences been like as a brake woman?
Brakemen don't get enough credit. I think they take a lot of the brunt of pilot stress as well as team stress, and we're always working and we're moving sleds. And yeah, we work as a team, but brakemen definitely get overlooked. So that can be tough, but it's also a very cool experience. You get to learn so much about the sport because you're so hands on right from the beginning. So I wouldn't trade my experience as a brakeman. I loved every second of it, but I'm very happy to be driving now.
How is it like getting to compete in the North American Cup and getting to compete in Calgary, in your home area?
Yeah, that was really fun for me. I have cousins and aunts that live out there, and it was neat to be able to have my family be alongside. My competitions all before that were like going over to Germany and that kind of stuff, and you don't have the same family and hometown pride as you do when you're sliding for your people. So it was really exciting.
How is it like obviously getting to travel the world and getting to compete on the European American Cup?
Very different. Europe has so much more exposure for bobsled. So when you're there, the track is full with people, which is really cool. It just becomes a different environment. You feel like you're actually competing for an audience rather than just yourself and a couple teammates, as well as like so many more competitors over in Europe.
What were some of the things that you were preparing for whenever you made the North American Cup for the first time?
Some of the things I was preparing for. I don't, I think I was just like, I had to make sure I was the right body weight for my team, which was different. I've never had to like cut weight for a sport. So just making sure that I was eating properly and trying to not disqualify our team. That was probably the biggest one.
Of course, going down the sled in the North American Cup, what was that feeling like when you finally found out that you brought home the bronze medal?
I think I was excited and a little bit disappointed. I know like my teammate and I at the time, we both had to lose 10 pounds in like 3 days. I think we had to lose it in. So we were exhausted. We didn't have the amount of energy we wanted. So I think we were hoping for more. But still, it's amazing to walk away with a medal of any kind.
What are some of your favorite memories and moments getting to travel the world and getting to compete internationally?
I think just the time you get to spend with your teammates, you become like a little family, and it's fun to share those memories and explore different areas. It's really fun to adventure out in Europe, and just see the different kind of like nature. I love going out into nature, so it's fun to experience that in other places of the world.
How was your experience like getting to compete in Germany and places like Australia?
Yeah, Germany and Austria were both very cool places. I love the German tracks. I think they're a lot of fun and they keep everybody on their toes. And I also enjoyed Austria, but it's an easier track, so there's less stress going into Austria than there is going into the German tracks.
What are some of your game day routines and rituals like preparing for a race day?
So a must do is a half shower every morning before a race. It makes me feel awake and alive. And braid my hair. I love having braids for competition. It just makes me feel like I'm ready and everything's in order.
What was your experience like getting to compete in the North American Cup and travel to the magical Lake Placid?
Lake Placid. Lake Placid was such a fun experience for me this year, especially. I walked away with a silver medal, which was my first silver as a monobob driver. And I actually really enjoyed the track. It's technical, um, and some of it's a little bit scary, but it comes at a speed that's not quite as fast as Whistler. So I was a little bit more aware of what was happening. But yeah, I found it challenging, but also a lot of fun.
Of course, what was that moment like getting to go down the Lake Placid track and know that Miracle on Ice was obviously filmed in that area?
Yeah, it's a pretty cool feeling to just be in that area and feel the magic of Lake Placid. It holds like a different kind of energy, and you feel like you're in I don't know, a Christmas movie, a Hallmark movie, which is a nice feeling when you're there.
Of course, how did it feel to have the silver medal put around your neck after the Lake Placid experience?
It was great. I was a little bit surprised, I think, with that accomplishment. I wasn't expecting to do that well in my first season as a monobob driver, and I think it just kind of solidified the feeling for me that I was in the right spot and doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which was it allowed me to take a breath and be happy with what I'm doing at the moment.
Of course, for my listeners that don't know, what is the difference between a mom and bob and like a four-man sled?
Yeah, so there's three disciplines in bobsled now. It's monobob, two woman, two man, and four man. And monobob is a single person, so it's a little bit lonely because you don't have a teammate. But there's also a sense of like I can be relaxed because I don't feel like I'm going to hurt someone if I crash because it's just me. So, but it's a bit of a skiddy sled compared to a two man and a four man, which have more weight to keep you kind of grounded.
Of course, when competing in monobob, what is it like obviously going down the sled being by yourself and making sure you can control the sled without crashing?
Yeah, I think the biggest part of being a pilot that I've learned so far is that you really gotta dial it down as soon as you get in the front seat and take a breath and just kind of focus. My reminders to myself are to look long because everything that's happened behind me doesn't matter. So I just have to keep looking forward and try and drive what's coming in front of me. When you skid, you try not to panic, and sometimes you're supposed to panic and you don't. I've had coaches be like, "You were supposed to panic. What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, you told me not to panic. I'm doing great." But yeah, it's a lot of fun to control the sled.
What was that feeling like getting to put on your bobsledding uniform and have Team Canada on it?
Yeah, putting on the speed suit for race day is a pretty cool feeling. Like when you're freezing because you're not in your big warm training gear, but you're also like vibrating with adrenaline and excitement because it's go time. So I think to be able to represent Canada on any kind of stage has been one of the best feelings for me.
Of course, how has it been like obviously competing in that rivalry between US and Canada?
It's been kind of fun actually. I've made a couple more friends this year on the US team because we spent a lot of time in Whistler together. And I actually took a season off last year, so I kind of fell out of the loop of bobsled a little bit. But it's been nice being able to talk about the same things we have in common with the US. And as much as we're competing against each other, we're also facing all the same challenges in sport and as women in sport. So it's nice to be able to bond over those things.
Of course, with you taking that year off from last year, how has it been like obviously getting back into the sport of bobsledding?
Yeah, it was really tough. I didn't realize how much a 14-month off season would strain me as an athlete. Mentally, physically, I was just recovering from a torn tendon, but mentally, I was struggling with whether I wanted to stay in sport or if I wanted to pursue a career and financial stability. But after being back in the sled and competing, I'm pretty certain that this is what I'm supposed to do for the next little while.
How have you been able to balance life as a bobsledder with life outside of bobsledding?
It's hard. I think any athlete can say that you have to be a little bit selfish to pursue sport, and not selfish in a bad way, but selfish in terms of putting your diet first and putting your sleep first, which means less outings and less meals with friends and family. So I have found like a decrease in the amount of extracurriculars I do and the amount of friends that I still keep in touch with, which is a little bit sad, but the ones that really make an impact in my life are still in my life. So it's nice to have those supportive people around.
Who are some of the people that you look up to in the sport of bobsledding?
Yeah, so a couple of them, but Alicia Risling, Christine De Bruin, Kristen Binowski, and Dawn Richardson Wilson are four of my women in sport that I look up to. They all have such persistence and drive, and to watch them all have competed in the Olympics was amazing, as well as to compete alongside them was an incredible, like, those are all incredible women that I hope I can also handle sport in such a professional way as I continue in my career.
Of course, getting started in the sport of bobsledding and being in your rookie year, what are some of the things that you've took from those veterans like Christina and Alyssa?
that if you're not doing it because you love it, really, you shouldn't be doing it. And that there's always room to fight for your spot on the team. Like both those women never gave up and they both proved so much in the sport. And I'm grateful to have them as people who have led the way for the rest of us. And I just want to be able to continue their legacy that they've left. They were great people to have for culture wise and keeping the team level headed.
Of course, do you have anybody that you look up to outside of the Team Canada?
Yeah, I mostly family members. My grandpa was one of the most amazing people in my life, and he was selfless and very giving and always encouraged people that there wasn't a ceiling. And I love the notion of being able to be a role model for youth today, to know that there's not a ceiling for them, no matter where you come from or what you've been given, you have the choice and the opportunity to push those boundaries.
How's it like obviously getting to compete against some of your teammates that have made the national team?
Very cool. I think bobsled sometimes drives a wedge because you're competing for spots, but it also allows you to push yourself to be better every day. There's always someone in front of me who I can be chasing, but also admiring for their strengths in the sport.
What are some of the things that you learned about the sport of bobsled that you didn't know before getting started?
I didn't know bobsleds were so heavy. That was new for me. I didn't realize how much time and energy spent at the track. It's like an 8 hour day. And I was like, this is a full time job. I don't know how anybody works while they're also sliding. Um, the amount of time you put into preparing the sled, the runner prep, like all those things were new to me. And it's very interesting to learn just how much work goes into a couple sliding sessions.
How have you been able to balance life as a professional athlete with also having a corporate job?
Yeah, it's tough. I would say like the jobs I pick up are contract, which makes it a little bit easier. It's hard to find a job that will hire someone who's not in the same spot for 3 weeks or more at a time. So everything I do is mostly online and it's making little bits and pieces here and there to put me through season and then off season find work that pays enough to fund my season.
Was it like obviously getting to meet your fans and having them ask for your autographs and photos with you?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, honestly. I was a little bit embarrassed the first time I got asked to sign something. To me, I'm just me and honestly don't feel like I have accomplished very much. And that's just probably a poor way to look at it because everyone should be happy with their accomplishments to date. But signing things for people has been a real struggle. I'm like, why would you ask me to sign that? What are you going to do with that? I've recently been working on my signature because I've had the same one since I was 12 and it's really not great. So
Of course, what is that like? Obviously, having your fans recognize you and obviously know what your accomplishments have been.
it's cool. It's heartwarming. I especially love being able to go in and talk to kids and have kids be excited about what I'm doing. I would say that's like one of my biggest passions alongside going to the Olympics is being able to inspire kids to do exactly what they want to do and not feel afraid to go for it. So it's nice to see people be excited about what I'm doing.
What does it mean to you to become a Canada bobsledder?
To me, it means I think pushing myself past what anyone thought I could do or what I even thought I could do as a kid. I think it's allowed me to really understand that there is nothing that you can't do if that's what you really want. So to me, it's making my dream come true and allowing me to pave the way for the next generation of women.
What has that been like, obviously, getting to represent Team Canada and putting them on a national level?
Yeah, I think kind of like I said before, it's just like that feeling of representing your country and having, especially my family and friends, be proud of what I'm doing. That is kind of the fuel and it makes me extremely happy to be doing what I'm doing.
What are some of the things that you do to prepare for race days?
You really got to make sure that you're not going to go overweight. So it's mostly focusing on my eating, my sleep, making sure I weigh in a couple days before, keeping everything the same meal wise. And then, yeah, making sure I'm showered and clean, ready to go with fresh hair, feeling good, look good, feel good, race good.
What are some of your favorite memories and moments competing so far?
As a brakeman, I think competing in Europe has been some of the most exciting times, and adventure wise, it's been pretty fun. But I think most of my excitement now is coming from being in the pilot seat, which I think coming second in Lake Placid and a fourth in Whistler, those have been pretty extreme accomplishments for me to date.
How has that experience been like, obviously sitting in that pilot seat and going down the track?
Yeah, it's different. The like speed at which the track comes at you is fast. I think my first time down Whistler, I blocked it all out. I was like, I don't remember a single thing that just happened. I don't know what corner I'm in. So it's pretty interesting feeling to be in the front, but it's I think better than being in the back, at least for myself. And I think learning tracks in a couple days this year was also very difficult because I didn't know where I was for a couple days. I was like, oh, I'm corner 7. Nope, it's corner 11 and I need to drive it differently. But it's been fun.
What are some of your future plans in the sport of bobsledding?
Yeah, so I really want to continue as a pilot. So that's number one, is to push fast enough that I'll be able to stay in the front seat. And then I think the next steps are to go to Europe for Europa Cup, and then hopefully we're competing a couple World Cups and World Champs. And then from there, an Olympic or 2 Olympics would be incredible.
What is that feeling gonna feel like, obviously getting to compete in the World Cups and then go on to compete in the Olympics?
I don't know because I've never been there, but I can imagine there is, as much as there's excitement, there's probably going to be some disappointment, but I think it's all great for skill building and building resiliency. And I'm excited for all of it, for everything that comes my way.
What advice would you give those track athletes in college that are looking to compete in college and then go on to compete professionally?
I think my biggest piece of advice would be to finish your degree. I left with a year left of my degree, and I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to finish it. As much as there's a rush, there's not as much of a rush as we think there is when we're 21, 22. It can wait another year. But yeah, just to keep pursuing and taking in all the experience you can of university.
What advice would you give those college athletes that are looking to get into the sport of bobsledding?
I would say to really make sure you're practicing your sprints and your strength, and maybe try and get out on some ice and see what it's like to push on ice, because it's a very different feeling than pushing on the road.
What advice would you give those people that are looking to make a national team and represent either Team Canada or Team USA?
I think just make the most of representing your country, and to be sure to lead by example. I think it's really important to be the person you wished you had to role model you in sport, as you're going to be that for somebody else. So making sure that you are gracious, because humans are humans and we're all going to make mistakes and we're going to say things we don't mean. But at the end of the day, if you can be a good person and a good teammate, it will help you be a good athlete and role model.
What advice would you give those rookies such as yourself that are entering the professional aspect of professional bobsledding?
I think it's important, if you're already at the level that I'm at, you know what's important for physical wise, but I think it's really important mental wise to take care of your mental health. And I would really recommend mental performance coaching.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
Yeah, on Instagram, I am Mackenzie.Stewart1123. Facebook, I'm Mackenzie Stewart, and I also have a website, mackenziestewart.ca, that you can find all that information at.
Thank you again, Mackenzie Stewart, for your interview. Best of luck in your future as a Team Canada bobsledder.
Thank you so much. It was lovely to be on here with you.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Mackenzie Stewart, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thanks.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media, and on YouTube.